Hi everyone, I'm Galactic Ashley, and this is Galactic Mahana, and we're here to wish you a super happy, merry solstice June 2021, and also a happy Father's Day for those of you that are fathers out there. Um, well, let's get to it because we have a lot of energy that's coming in, an amazing transmission and activation that we're going to do. And I'm going to introduce Mahana really quickly. So the first thing is that Mahana is a galactic being. We have incarnated multiple lifetimes together, and I feel very blessed that she has decided to find me in this lifetime. I don't even like to go back and think about it because it's just the synchronicities of everything that happened, and I'm just so eternally grateful. We have channeled in many lifetimes and just work together in this symbiotic relationship. So she will be participating in the background. You will definitely hear her, especially today. I do want to talk about. So yes, I feel like I just heard this question from someone. An animal can definitely be a galactic being. They are coming in here a lot of times in animal form to hold these unconditional love frequencies and to be mirrors and to work with humanity on and through the ascension process. And it's very supportive when we understand that we are here to work with nature and to work with animals, and that we do it together. I do want to talk about her name really quickly. Oh, the other thing is she carries a lot of dragon energy. She's aligned with the big Syrian cats, the big lion beings. And she holds tons of solar energies, all different frequencies of solar energies, which I find fascinating. And her name was given to me when I was 16. I was in religion class, and I was doodling, aka writing light language, in the margins of my notebook. And I wrote down and drew really big this name, Mahana. And about a decade later, in 2012, she found me, and we have been together ever since. So I want to talk about her name because it relates to today. The first thing is that Mahana is Polynesian and specifically Tahitian, but it's also the same word in Hawaiian. It means day, light, dawn, dusk. And what I love about that, and what I love about indigenous languages in general, is that sometimes you can have these extremely specific words for water and depths of water, for diving in the deeper parts of the ocean versus being more in the lagoon, and things that sort of water. The beings are here and they're like, let's go. But the beauty is that you are being asked to sort of embody the moment and practice deep listening, because if somebody's telling a story and you're not really paying attention, you don't know if they're saying morning or dawn or afternoon, harsh light. And so you're being requested to sort of really engage with the person that you're communicating with. But I also love that light is embodied kind of in this one beautiful word, and it carries such a light frequency too. And so every iteration of light can exist in this word, and that's essentially what we are, right? We are multiple frequencies of light, and we have a light body, and we are currently embodied. And so I find these things absolutely fascinating because they are inviting us to sort of engage with language and the codes that are behind language, And when you start looking at language and culture, you can really see where belief systems sort of begin and then where they build from or where they unravel from. Additionally, my favorite word is mapui, which means to take a breath. And it's very specific to, this is another one of those words, right? So mapui is a Tahitian word meaning to recover one's breath or to breathe again, especially after a long dive. So, of course, that makes sense, right? That's not going to exist in a desert region, right? That's a very island, pearl, diving specific word. But I love it because it's similar to the ascension, right? Like you are diving into these liquid crystalline pools of light, into the depths, sometimes very deep, sometimes it gets dark, and sometimes you don't have to dive that deep, and you are looking for pearls, which is a very underrated, in my opinion, gem or mineral. And what I love about it is it definitely embodies the divine feminine. And it's almost been ignored. And there's black pearls. And I'm specifically speaking about black pearls. And they aren't black. They're really very rainbow luminescent. Sometimes they have these green hues. And they are created within an oyster because there's a piece of sand in there. So there is an agitation or an irritation. And we're talking about natural pearls. And they take a very long time. And it's very rare to have a perfect circle pearl. So those are, and then to be really large. So those are extremely valuable. But they are layered. So it's almost like rings on a planet. And then it just keeps on building layer after layer after layer after layer, and it's growing and it's expanding. But it's not necessarily easy, and it takes time. So it's like we are both the pearl diver and the pearl. We are searching, we are diving, we are exploring. We are in these liquid pools of light in the water bodies of this planet, with the cetacean beings and the whales sounding into the water, attuning and toning these frequencies within the water bodies. And then we are beings that live on the land, but we also have water bodies, and our water bodies, we are crystalline beings, and we are resonating with these sounds and with these tones when we are in alignment and we are in touch with nature. We can be conscious of this, right? So we are connected to all of these water bodies. We are water bodies. And we are also, during this ascension process, healing and expanding and healing and expanding. And then if we are the pearl diver and we are diving deep, sometimes it's very deep, and then we're holding our breath, we're trusting our body, we are lowering our heart rate, we aren't getting frenetic, we are trusting that we know our body. We can hear our heartbeat in our head because we're holding our breath. We are releasing old air out of our system. The bubbles are going up, and we are still remaining calm. And then eventually 4 or 5 minutes later, we surface and we take this mapui, this first big breath in, and it is that release but also relief. But it's an intake, and it's a huge intake of source energy. And then our head is filled, and we get dizzy sometimes because our brain was lacking oxygen for like 5 minutes. And then you can rest for a moment on the floorboards of the boat, on the bottom of the boat, and just breathe. And then realign with your body, because you're still very tuned in to your body and you know yourself so intensely. And you practice, and there is discipline, but there is also a love for it. And that is what is beautiful. And I just love pearl divers. My grandfather was a pearl diver in the outer islands of the Tuamotu Islands in Fakarava. And it's just fascinating. My mother would tell me stories about how when they were little, he would swim underneath the water and they would sort of stay on his back on top. There was many of them. And he could swim 4 lengths of an Olympic-sized pool in one breath with children on his back. And that's a memory that she has of him. And when I was a child, I would communicate with him. I actually feel closer to him than any of my other grandparents that I actually did meet. And I don't even know why necessarily, but I would hold my breath in the bathtub underwater, and I wanted to get to 4 minutes, and I would just listen to my heartbeat in my head, and I would communicate with him underwater. And I felt like that's where I could communicate with him best. I mean, I was like 6 years old, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I was blessed with multiple opportunities to go back and to visit family. And I was also there in the South Pacific when I was like 6 and 7. And then later as an adult during grad school. And I won't get into all of that, but because we're talking about the divine feminine today, we're going to be talking about Mu and Lemuria and Hyperborea. The Cathars and the Eieyani essentially the ascended masters. So before I get too far into this, I realized I introduced Mahana, but I did not introduce myself. And the beings actually really want to get started. So I find this fascinating, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So I am Galactic Ashley, officially. Hello. I channel divine guidance for starseeds, connecting them to their star families and galactic lineages. I use light language frequencies and work with your cosmic connections to facilitate high-frequency healing transmissions and encoded activations. So really briefly, before we get started, and this is all totally out of order, and that's okay because we're embracing imperfection today because truly I've been beating my head almost, which is very weird because it's normally much easier for me to be in I want to channel and I want to connect and I want to know what the energies are coming that are coming through and what kind of transmission are we going to bring through. And literally for the last 24 hours it's like I've been sitting here almost pounding my head against the wall and like nothing was coming together, and there was sort of like a computer glitches, and then I sat down and I just looked at the clock and it is officially 8:34 and it is literally the solstice right now. And part of it is the experience that I needed to have, and you'll find out because we're going to be healing divine feminine wounds together, like really deep ones that are not only embedded in our physical structure, but also within the planetary body and the planetary logos, right? But it's like I've been sitting here trying to receive and masculine energies coming from the sun, and I'm like, come on, like why can't we make this happen? I need to go. I need to leave at such and such a time because it's Father's Day and I'm going to be traveling, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's literally almost been 24 hours. I kid you not. all of a sudden everything just shifted and it's easy. And I don't want to say had I been paying attention I would have known, but it's partially because what happens is sometimes the beings like to remind me of what other people are experiencing. And I'm not saying I never experienced this, so don't get me wrong, but they like to give me a refresher to kind of help remind me how people are challenged and struggling when there is not alignment or unification between the divine feminine and masculine, or simply the mind and the heart. So they're speaking in this moment about the mind and the heart, and it's almost impossible, we'll talk about this in a second too, to unify the divine feminine and masculine right now. So we're going to put a pin in that. What I do want to say is there is one quick announcement, and I am very proud and so excited to announce this brand new Galactic Guided Intensive that's coming up, which these are 10-week courses, and this is a brand new one, and it is called Meet the Galactics, Opening to the Star Nations and Their Shared Wisdom. And it starts soon, July 21st. And I'm really excited for this class. Why? Because so many different star nations have already been coming in and identifying themselves and bringing in amazing ascension guidance, codes, and frequencies to infuse the course content with these really powerful high vibrational energetic transmissions and activations. And truly, especially in these times of polarity, they're really wanting us to come together as a cosmic community where we celebrate our uniqueness. And that is so important because we're not trying to be the same. We're not trying to be anyone else. We are being asked to be our perfect, authentic selves. So we are going to be celebrating our uniqueness, allowing our differences to be the authentic gifts that they are, and to become the high vibrational catalyst for conscious connection and greater heart coherency. So we are embodying cosmic community, connection, co-creation, and unconditional love. And we bring the galactic community into our present awareness. We live as galactic citizens with one another in this group, and we don't need to wait to ascend or to have the new human body in order to be our galactic selves. We need to shift our frequency, heal our fear, and free ourselves from manipulation and embrace our galactic truth now in this infinite now moment. Because this is how we co-create the new earth, the new human, is we start working with these templates and placing them in our etheric bodies. And we work with the planetary logos or the new earth to help her and to help these high vibrational beings that are coming in and placing templates and these grid systems within her structure so that we are all co-creating in unity consciousness. So my question to you is, so I'm excited. So July 21st, registration just opened, and check it out, galacticashley.com, and there are payment plans, and it's going to be awesome. There's also 6 guest speakers, and each one of them works very intensely with galactic beings, whether they're channels, authors. A galactic astrologer from New Zealand is going to be working with us and talking about his experiences. So all right, now that is out of the way, what we're doing tonight in this beautiful solstice moment together is that we are, and I know when you see this, we won't be sharing in this moment, but The hidden intention, or the one that I wasn't seeing clearly, is that they wanted me to be sitting here during the exact moment of the solstice so that through me I can bring through these frequencies that will be embedded in this transmission. So it's like you're here in this infinite now moment with me, and so I'm very excited. And I have no idea how long any of this is going to be. I'm not even going to worry about it. So hopefully whoever is out there that needs this will find it, and I'm sure they will. The beings are pretty good about that. So tonight, this afternoon, this evening, whatever this is, this perfect alignment moment, we are going to be taking, I don't want to say taking advantage of, leveraging this divine alignment, and we're going to be releasing huge, big vibrations and huge chunks of divine feminine, the feminine wound, and false timelines. And we're going to be bringing in these diamond sun frequencies, and we're going to activate the true divine feminine principle, and we're going to let go of whatever it is we think the divine feminine, or just feminine in general, is. So we're going to look at these past archetypes. And when I say archetype, an archetype is almost like this space that we tend to embody, and it's a program. It's like if you think of the nesting dolls or a Matryoshka doll, it's like, but all of the same size, right? So I guess they wouldn't be nesting, but they're kind of empty inside. And so each of these empty dolls are all archetypes, but they have to come from some point or some place. They have to be created out of a thought in order to manifest and then become a program. So essentially, archetypes are programs that are sitting there and reflecting information, experiences back to you, and some people align with some archetypes over others, and some of us come in specifically to work through some of these archetypes. So these are really like the archetypes that we're talking about. I should probably stop using, no, they say archetype is good. It's an arc, it's a type of an arc. An arc. Interesting. It's like an ascension arc. So each one of these archetypes, essentially, you can choose to embody the archetype to experience it. It's kind of like trying clothes on or an outfit. Those are the same thing. It's like trying clothes and trying outfits on to see what it might be like, trying a uniform on. Yes, a uniform, right? It's like the policeman, the firefighter, the doctor, the garbage man, the grocer, the teacher. Any of these are all archetypes, right? So what happens is when you are not conscious and you're not able to observe, you can be embodying and walking around and transmitting these archetypes throughout your existence and your human experience, which is just perpetuating the archetype more. Remember that every archetype, even if it's the divine feminine or the divine child or whatever the archetype is, the saboteur, that's obviously a shadow one, the king, the queen, they all have shadow sides to them. So if we're not conscious of the archetype that we are embodying, we can be contributing to bringing more of the shadow part of that archetype into the morphogenetic field. And one of those archetypes happens to be the queen and the king, and they're considered the false king and the false queen because we have completely lost touch with what it means to be feminine or the divine feminine, right? So we're going to be looking at the fall of man and genocide, massacres, and dehumanization, and a lot of, not fun things, but they are the reality within this planet, within this planetary body. So one of these is Hyperborea, and this is, you can think of this as the first the first being that had a body kind of as a human, but it was there was hardly any density to it at all. And it's from the northern areas, very much associated with the northern winds. And it's this is part of our root race. I think it's the second root race. And it's connected to its star consciousness, which is Polaris, or the Polarians. And they are very important to pay attention to. And we're just going to touch a little bit because I could really, I don't not get bogged down, but I know that I can just start talking and then we haven't gotten to the transmission. It's funny, but it's funny, not funny. Okay, so the reason why the Hyperboreans are really important is because they are the root races from, you can call it the seventh dimensional Earth, an iteration of Earth from the seventh dimension. And they are important because this was the timeline of the first original trauma of the fall of the human race. And they are actually connected to the Yggdrasil tree, which is the divine structure of the sacred tree from the golden age of Hyperborea. And the importance of that is because the Hyperboreans came in and they were able to be in divine feminine and masculine union. They were able to go through the sacred marriage, the unification process, or what you might call the Christos Sophia. They were one and they were balanced. And thank you. And the sacred tree is connected to the land and to the earth, and so there was very much a oneness that was happening. So that is the first one that we are going to look at. And so they were really embodying, right? I mean, they had a body, very not dense at all, and very connected, still knowing all of their histories, very connected to the galactic consciousness, and they knew that they were one with their Polarian counterparts. So it's one of our first human embodiments within this planetary structure, and they embodied the heavenly or the divine masculine and the receptive feminine, and that is why we are bringing this one up to look at. The other one is what we would call the Eieyani or the Yanas, and they are ascended masters. So don't just necessarily think of Yeshua or Mary or Kuan Yin, but think beyond that, bigger, like one layer outside of source, like the true ascended masters, where when you connect with this consciousness field, you are essentially connecting with geometric shapes made of living light. And they're essentially ultra-terrestrials. They carry the cosmic trinity within them, or what dynamic balance. They are holding this braided flame of energy, which you can call the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and the divine child. So it's this energy, and it's perfect, and it's balanced, and it is the cosmic family consciousness, and it is more than when you imagine ascended masters. It is more than that, if that makes sense. And what's important about them is that occasionally they will incarnate in various forms into the fields of sort of space, time, matter within different density levels of our Earth grid matrix, in order to fulfill or to help serve a universal service mission. So they are still honoring sovereignty and cosmic law, but if they are going to project their consciousness and use stargates to enter into the planetary body, then they can do that to make adjustments. For example, when they are concerned that Atlantis is about to have a cataclysmic event, and that event might affect the rest of this solar system, the rest of this galaxy, and potentially create a rip in the space-time continuum. And when that happens, we have really big problems. And so essentially that's kind of what happened. And so it's referred to as the Eieyani massacre, and it's a massacre. And so why this is important is because they came to help try and anchor in these high vibrational Christed consciousness codes back into the earth plane. And remember, at this point, there had already been another iteration, a high vibrational dimensional earth that had already exploded. And so they were very concerned about Atlantis creating some problems, especially because it was so hyper masculine and the power structure became out of control. So it's like these divine beings all of a sudden are in this dimension, even as their high vibrational selves and connected, because there wasn't an encapsulated grid system yet. But there were a lot of non-beneficial energies here at the time that were trying to keep this planet in operating in descending rather than ascending, because the beings that were desiring that need the dissension in order to have their own energies, and in order to be able to manifest what they need to survive. So it's just very polarizing energies. And at the same time, the Lemurians, and these are the other beings that we're going to connect with, the Mu and Lemuria, they represented, while Atlantis was holding these frequencies of the divine, well, not originally the divine masculine, and eventually the toxic masculine, I suppose, and they were very much on land, even though they were working with and bringing water in. It's the Lemurians that were very connected to the earth. They were not interacting with humans at all. They originally wanted to experience this beautiful water planet to see if they could actually, live here, and if beings like them from their collective consciousness could live here and do well. And they watched and they observed, and they were very close with the cetacean beings and all of the water beings. And there's a lot of portals and energy, like high vibrational frequencies and stargates that are beneath the ocean. And they were very vibrational beings. They used telepathy. They can also, you could say, shape shift in a lot of ways. They could, kind of hold more androgynous codes within them. But they were overall, as a collective, very feminine, divine feminine. And like history begins to show itself, there was a Lemurian Holocaust. So with the Eieyani massacre, essentially these were the ascended masters that returned to the earth plane at a certain point prior to the pole shift during the last cycle. And this experience has been embedded in the cellular memory, because anytime, every experience is held within the cellular memory. But in this case, because these souls, when they projected themselves here, and remember, it's very complicated because these are extremely high vibrational beings. Remember, these are geometric forms. These are geometric consciousness fields filled with light. So they really have to stop their energy down to come here, and then they project their consciousness into the planetary grid and bring a part of them here in order to shift the energy within the grid in hopes that Atlanteans might come to their senses and rebalance. But they weren't able to do that. And so what happened is that they essentially they were destroyed to the point that they were just dust. And so I know this sounds strange, but the bigger purpose of this is that these beings, these high vibrational consciousness beings, became trapped in this void area. And I see them in these like spheres of energy in this nothingness, and they are kept there. And the non-beneficial energies, we will loosely call them, since we are using the term Christed consciousness, we can use reptilian consciousness. And so these beings are existing in this dimension of Earth, in this iteration of Earth, before and including, that includes the memory. So not just the massacre, them being obliterated, but also the pole shift memory. And so those memories are still trapped, even though they have no consciousness. So they have no consciousness, and they're not able to recognize that they have been like annihilated. They don't necessarily have an awareness because they've been fragmented into dust. There's nothing to collect, but that consciousness energy is still there. So then it was held. So basically this is a huge trauma that is held in the earth body for like 25,000 years. It's been sitting there. And it's not just one sphere. I mean, there's a lot of spheres of energy. So you can think of this similar to when you get a massage. And if you have traumas, and maybe you are going to Ralphing, or you are going to your massage therapist, and she or he is working on your body, and then all of a sudden there is a trauma that is within you that is ready to release, but it has been buried or repressed or suppressed in your subconscious. And now you have a memory of a really horrific trauma from like when you were 8 years old that your body went into survival mode about and didn't want you to remember or know about until you were ready to actually look at it. So then it comes up in your body, the memory is activated, and then it becomes released from the physical body, and sometimes it looks like kind of black smoke or kind of like a of energy that kind of leaves the body. But then now you have the emotional body that is remembering this. So it's important to remember that when we remember, it is through our emotional body. So our emotional body is the experience within this incarnation in this planetary body that we are able to access our memories. And so this is helpful when you are discerning between organic and inorganic timelines or false timelines, false programming. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's see, where were we? So while the Yanis or the Eiyanis came here to prevent a cataclysm, they ended up getting stuck here and without awareness. But still, even though you aren't aware that you are experiencing pain, they were still in pain and sort of in this torment area. It's similar to when you are undergoing a surgery and you have been anesthetized. Your physical body and your adrenaline and your whole system is still like what I always say is running a marathon, even though you have no recollection of it. Like it's still undergoing a physical trauma. You just don't have a conscious recollection of it. So it's similar to that. So there is still a trauma. It is still held within that consciousness. There is still suffering and issues here. And additionally, the other collective that we are going to be connecting with. So the next group, the next consciousness is the Cathar. We'll just say the Cathar beings, but it's really the Cathar lineages. And on March 16th, 1244, there was a large massacre that took place where over 200 Cathars were burnt in an enormous pyre, and basically it was called the Field of the Burned, near the foot of a castle. And this was done because the Cathars were part of the real Templars of the Order of the Christ consciousness, or the Christed ones. So you can just loosely think about this as Mary and Yeshua having a high vibrational existence together where they see each other as equal, and they are living from the heart and the sacred heart. And this is what they believe to be true, and it was very much they supported the divine feminine. And the Cathars were protecting certain esoteric information in the Gnostic text and symbols from the Essenes. And they knew that they were able to connect to, again, these really higher vibrational, the Christed consciousness energy fields, and that they were able to essentially channel and live in this oneness. So this is very much the Yeshua, Christ, Mary, Christ, Sophia mission. And the Roman Catholic Church basically organized and burned them all. So that is, so I hope that you're understanding that the divine feminine, we have no idea anymore what that even is. It has been brutalized, it has been tortured, it has been reprogrammed into weakness, bitchiness, sexiness, power, but through sex. The voice has been shut down. There has been abuse and rape and a lot of womb issues. And the reason for this is because we are part of a divine feminine planet. This Sophia consciousness, this new earth, this crystalline consciousness is the divine feminine. And so as an embodied female within this planetary consciousness, you are the creator. You are literally holding this space between multiple dimensions within your womb. You can give birth. You literally create and you hold space and you use the heart energy and you create consensus and agreement and balance and all of these things. So if you are somebody, if you are a collective or a race that would like to have power and control, but you lack an emotional body because you're not from here, you need to create a lot of genocides and massacres to have power over, and then to keep rerunning these programs in the system so that you are keeping the planet in a space where it will descend rather than ascend, and then you can use these energies to survive, and then you can have power over the female body so that you can use it in a way for you to be able to co-create what it is that you want, and that you are in service to the self of the self and not in service into the unity consciousness. Sorry, I was listening to something else that was coming in. Okay. Okay, so that's the basis. I spoke way longer, I believe, than probably necessary. I'm going to keep this all in one recording, so I will mark it with a bookmark. Although that doesn't really help. All right, so again, embracing imperfection. All right, so the opportunity. So in this moment, what we're going to do is we're going to begin the transmission portion. And we are going to be calling up the feminine wounds that are being held in your own physical structure and your own cellular body. It does not matter if you are currently embodied as a man or a woman, or as a non-binary beautiful being, because we all have divine feminine and divine masculine and the divine child within us, and this is how we create unification and balance. So it is imperative that we all understand the relationship between these three energies that we hold within our physical structure, with our in our energy bodies, and that everything evolves from this Trinity energy imprint. That is not right. It's not an energy imprint. This dynamic balance, this unification, this braiding of this perfect balance. So today we are going to be releasing anything that has been programmed, that is a part of the false matrix, that is a false timeline, that is a negative program based on an inorganic experience. So what we mean by this is that when you can have a memory that was implanted. So that's what these solar frequencies and these solar energies are going to help us do, is to let go of this stuff that really doesn't even have anything to do with an actual lived experience. It is a non-beneficial, inorganic, false code that's been placed in your system, in your subconscious, or as an implant in the plasma body and even in the physical body. We're going to be releasing wounds from the female, the feminine wounds. So let me see. So because these energies have been trapped and are infused within the planetary body, because we are reflections and part of the crystalline consciousness, we are part of Earth, all iterations of Earth. We share the same body. We are mirrors to this body. It means that we also have these wounds within us. And so the purpose of remembering these timelines and connecting to them and healing them is because if we don't know how to heal the past of these archetypes, so the archetype is coming back, it means that they will play out these patterns over and over again, and then we end up seeing the cycles within cycles within cycles, and we're constantly, because of this cellular memory that is left unhealed within the unconscious part of the collective, and that is stuck and or trapped within the physical bodies, both of Gaia and the physical human structure. It means that we are still running these patternings. So it's understanding that the genocide and the massacre, that this type of enemy patterning is intersecting and connecting through various timelines in these cycles. So you have the Hyperborea, the fall of man. You have the wounding of the divine feminine from the Cathars and the Lemurians, and then you have these ascended masters that disintegrated, and the power of that in the pole shifts and is being used to create these patterns that are almost keeping us at war with ourselves, but also running these galactic war histories. And it's important to remember that these are higher vibrational beings that were playing out all of this, and that we are still playing this out. So, and we still see this, right? You have the Holocaust with the Nazis, and then in 1947 you have Israel basically moving out, dislocating and removing Palestinians from their homes. And to this day, you have Palestinians holding keys to their homes that they were forced to leave from, and now they are experiencing genocide between Israel and Palestine, right? So this is another pattern that is being repeated over and over again, cycles within cycles within cycles, where we are making excuses and trying to make ourselves right so that we can brutalize and dehumanize fellow human beings, Christed beings. And so it's just important to remember, like, no judgment, right? This is not just limited to a third dimensional experience. This is happening multidimensionally. And then it's also happening like on an individual level within your own personal timeline. So we are talking about this. We're going to approach this because in order for the ascended master frequencies that are trapped within the earth, you must be part of that collective consciousness in order to heal them. So if that doesn't resonate with you, still stay, because there's a lot of healing and other energetics and codes that are coming in. But if that does resonate with you, then you have come here essentially, and this is part of your mission, is to connect with that and to heal it and release it. And so we're going to go through that process together, because it takes an ascended master to rescue or to collect an ascended master. It will take a Lemurian to bring out these cyclical, lower vibrational energies that are within the cellular memory and structure of Earth when they need to be witnessed, released, and healed. So you must be part of this collective consciousness. Now, again, the reason why this is because you can approach this, because when you are part of a collective consciousness, all your experiences can be separate, but all of those experiences are downloaded into the collective consciousness, unless you have become so fragmented that you are now disconnected from that consciousness. And in this case, these source codes, these primal tones, these primordial and first source tones, they need to go back into the soul and to reintegrate so that source can be source codes, right? So this is a huge opportunity, and the reason why this is coming up is because all of these timelines are surfacing within the planetary body, and they're coming up. So we have this opportunity right now, and in alignment with these solar frequencies that are coming, source energies from the great grand central sun are coming directly into our physical structures and into the planetary body. So we are having this high frequency energy that's coming in so that we can consciously connect and release and heal these huge wounds. So specifically through these feminine holocausts and these massacres in history, is that we created the wounded female, and that wounded female replaced the divine feminine, and that is the energy that is constantly cycling in our planetary grid, and it shows itself in relationships. It shows itself in history in the way that we treat each other. It shows in there's no equality, that the divine feminine has just been obliterated and almost non-existent within this system that we are in. So today is a real powerhouse day. So a lot of us that are female are holding that wound, and most of us don't even know we are holding that wound. So that is the key to this. So there is a piece of this wound that will heal, and it will heal within your physical body, and then also on a multidimensional level, and it will help to heal the earth. So we are going to be able to embody feminine power today, I would say in this moment, but once it's fully integrated, we're going to be activating the divine feminine, and you will have the opportunity to truly integrate these energies and embody the feminine power in a way that has never been embodied before. Because, and this is kind of brilliant, is like right now in this moment, let's just delete and let go of everything that we think of what it means to be a woman or female or feminine or the divine feminine. Just toss it all out. And then let's activate the divine feminine, integrate those energies, and just start with a pure, clean slate and see what happens. See how we experience this energy moving through our system. See how it affects our sacred heart. See how it affects our heart chakra and our energy body, and how we will be able to receive and connect to source energy and to divine guidance and to all of these crystalline thought streams and transmissions that are coming in. But because we are terrified and wounded, we will not open to breathe these energies in. All right, so let's just do this. We're going to start. I'm telling you, got to stop talking.